habitat loss is the greatest threat to our flats fisheries. That's why Bonefish and Tarpon Trust has been committed to restoring and conserving essential fish habitat for more than 25 years. From Florida to Belize, from the Bahamas to Mexico, we're restoring natural flows, replanting mangroves, and opposing unwise coastal development. But we can't do it alone. Help us bring science to the fight for the future of the fisheries we love. Become a member today at btt.org.
Hey guys, this is Melissa Bachman. Are you ready to stop spooking deer before it's even time to hunt them? Then you need the new Flex S Dark cellular trail camera from SpyPoint. With a no-glow flash option, long-lasting solar power, and a ton of settings that can be changed anytime through the SpyPoint app, there are no more excuses for letting your deer get wise before the season even starts. So check it out for yourself and see why the SpyPoint Flex S Dark is the unstoppable and undetectable scouting tool you need for your next hunt.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weissoon, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for today's modern hunter. Mossberg, American-built, American-strong. Vineyard Max, deer attractants created for the aroma of success, game feeders, and other hunting products. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert. And the Choctaw Hunting Lodge, home of some of the finest hunting in North America. Now, here's Larry.
Mr. Sam O, welcome back to home, if you will.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the campfire.
Mr. Weissoon, it's so great to be back on with you again. It's been about a year almost.
I know. Time just flies by. Unfortunately, we both get busy, and
yes,
I've been very fortunate. There have been so many other folks to see the short videos that you've been posting on Facebook and elsewhere, and those kind of things. And we'll tell people more about that in just a little bit. But we're not that far away from the whitetail season. You've been posting a bunch of really nice footage of whitetail bucks that you're seeing, but also some black bear and some bobcats and all those other kind of things. Now, since the last time we visited, you have been doing a lot of different things. We'll cover some of those a little bit, but you've been setting out some scent stations. Now, I want to know some more about that. And you started that quite some time ago, as I recall.
Yes, sir. Larry, I've learned a whole lot. Of course, if you do this kind of thing, you learn as you go. And if you ever think you quit learning, well, you just will go ahead and go to bed.
Amen.
But yes, I started those way back, actually, back in the summer. I think you saw that I had put some out, and even before that, last year, winter, after the season, the deer season had gone out, I showed people what to do so they can get bucks, on their camera, to show where they had lost antlers and see what they were having before they even lost them. And that was to put the cameras down low and still put your buck scent out in front of the camera, and that way the old bucks, he'll come through, they'll smell where somebody strange been around, And,
yes, sir.
And he'll almost poke that head right in that camera where you can see exactly what's going on, And then past that, up into the summer, you can do the same thing, and of course watch their velvet antlers starting to develop, from the bulbs, and then on through the season. And it's really interesting to watch, as you well know, the development and most of the time you'll have some of the same bucks coming back to the same area,
Right.
and the same does. The old does, they'll check that out too, and that's actually a good way to watch does, watch them, you know, when they're before they've had fawns while they're still pregnant, and you can almost tell about when they're getting ready to drop.
Right.
And, you know, so and I was just looking just now at some of my camera footage on here, that between Donna and I, the wife, we've got about 21 cameras out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, we're both so busy, just like everybody else, that we can't get to check them, you know, as regular as we should. But I was just looking on here a while ago, and at one of our stations, one of the scent stations where I had out, they were checking it out, and there were 4 beautiful fawns in that same frame. I'm gonna put that on in a little while, but as far as the scent stations go, they're, you know, it can tell you a whole lot. You know, scent stations can be used throughout the year, and of course on up to falls when you start changing your, you know, what type of scent you're putting in. However, you know, it really doesn't make much difference. Just like I said, an old deer coming through there, they know their territory, they know their family units, and you know, when they smell something strange or where somebody's strange, when I say somebody, another deer has been there, they're going to check it out. They're going to see who the challenger is going to be, maybe, and so yeah. What I use, I think it's called a stink stick. This is the one that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yes,
you know, of course you fill that thing up, you know, and hang it up in the tree, and they'll come looking around for it and stretching that old neck out up in the tree looking for it. But you know, you can get some really good footage if you put your cameras on video, you know, where they can pull you in some good video. And I think I don't have to tell you that this year, as far as my food plots go, I was a little remiss because of my health problems. I got, you know, I did a little bit of food plot work. I put a few brassicas in and some of the Ray's Crazy Spring Mix, but I didn't get to plow it like I wanted to, and because I didn't feel like I needed to be bouncing around on plowed ground.
no, you didn't.
But at the same time, you know, it did fairly well, and it's got some good cover down in it right now. And then my sorghum, volunteer sorghum from last year, and some of the seeds that I put in this, it came on, did pretty well. But we had some early spring rains, and I'm going to go back, if you will, to our winter last year and what happened. It was a pretty rough winter. You know, on the last podcast we were on, you asked me what was different. I'm gonna tell you what was different this year. Last January 6th was when the weather really started to change here in the winter, and that's when we got our first snowfall. Well, after that, of course, you know, I think we got about 10 inches, I think, is what we've got here.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, and then the sun came out, you know, for a little bit and warmed up a little bit and melted it on top. Well, then we had what's called a quick freeze. The wind changed out of the north and northeast, and I mean, buddy, it got cold. It got so cold. I mean, I was checking my trail camera cards, and some of the places I couldn't even get to. As a matter of fact,
really?
I fell down trying to get to one of them, and here I was. I looked like a big spider, you know, circling down through the ice on my belly, you know.
Oh my gracious!
And so a few of them I couldn't get to for a month or so, and but anyway, it started to change then, and in my mind I knew things were going to happen, and let's keep in mind, last year I had a really good food plot. Well,
yes, sir.
Up until this time, they had pretty much decimated it, and I knew it was not going to be a good winter for them.
Right.
So anyway, when it froze, Larry, there was about 6 inches of ice on top of the ground, and it laid there for over a month.
Oh, my gracious.
Yeah, and the ground was frozen too, of course, underneath that.
Yes, sir.
So you know, all hunters know that length of time for deer and turkeys, and you know, it's not good for them.
No.
They have a hard time, and so I think that coupled with right after it started thawing out, which was February the 15th, we had about 7 inches of rain on top of that ice, and it all started melting. We had a flood. And it was just a hard winter on them, you know. And I had some,
right.
Of course, I had some videos of some turkeys, just very few turkeys. It looked like they disappeared, and I know I had some deer that probably died, you know. They just starved to death. And now Roanoke and Botetourt County, they're only about, as the crow flies, about 10 miles from me across the mountain.
Yes, sir.
And believe it or not, they're 2 weeks ahead of me as far as the planting season goes. So I feel like also that some of the deer from here and turkeys probably went that way because it warmed up over there well before it did here.
Yes.
And you know yourself, they're going to go where the food's at. They're just like us.
They have to, right? They have to. We would too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. So, getting back to my scent stations, you know, that's one of the reasons I put them out early, to see what was really going on after that freeze, you know, and that told me a whole lot.
I want to, we'll get back to the food plot thing in a little bit, but
yes, sir.
What prompted you to start leaving scent out pretty much year round, as opposed to, you know, most hunters these days, they don't think about any of that kind of thing until probably about now. And this podcast will probably come out in early November, somewhere at the latest. And you know, up until for the most part, a lot of people don't even really think about whitetail deer or wildlife until the fall gets here. So what prompted you to start leaving the scent out? And you know, is it something you just tried, or is it something you'd been thinking about doing?
Well, I had been thinking about doing it, you know, prior to this. As you know, we said, well, I've been doing this kind of stuff for about 20 years. But
yes,
I got
right.
I got to thinking about that, Larry, and I thought, you know, there's a difference between a visiting deer or a resident deer, as you well know.
Right.
And I got to thinking about that thing. Of course, you know, I had the regular bucks in my food plots last year, and I wanted to see, you know, which ones were going to be staying.
Right.
Here on the property, and I thought, well, that's a good way to do it. You know, just put those scent stations out, and if they're here, they'll visit them year round. You know, and that's how you can tell your resident bucks.
Right.
And so, not only that, you also can tell what your genetics are going to be like later on. If you have those good bucks and those nice big does, you know, younger does but bigger does, well, then you know your fawning rate's going to be great. And not only that, the growth rate in it is going to be great. So that's for the main part. That's what I did that for. That's why I started putting them out year round. And you know, when you're watching deer like I do, and I watch them all the time, don't ask me why. That's just something I like to do. But
exactly.
But you know, when you study the things, now you're the biologist. I'm not. I wish I was. But when you study the things, my feelings are anything you can do to watch them year round, you're better off doing whatever it might be. And that's why I said, those scent stations in front of that camera is perfect, you know, because they're going to come to those before they will you on the camera, you know. So.
Absolutely. And what was interesting to me too, I mean, we're talking about deer here, and basically you got some fantastic information out of all this as well too. And you could tell what the health of the deer was as they were progressing in terms of both bucks and does, what the antler development was looking like. But then also, what a great way to get some really good observation data as far as buck to doe ratio or your fawn survival rates. and also as I've seen in your video, you had coyotes, had bobcats, had black bear, all of which can be predators, particularly on fawns and even on grown animals. So you learned a tremendous amount there, and you could see what was happening to some of those fawns as well too.
Absolutely, and compared to last year before I had my coyote hunter come in here earlier, I didn't have. I think I've had about 3 coyotes on this year, whereas last year I had him on every week.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and he between he and myself, of course, I got the one that was sick that came after me, but between he and my neighbors, I think we've taken care of about 10 of them here. But now around the area in the county, of course, Vince Caldwell, he's my coyote hunter. He hunts all over the county and parts of Roanoke County also. And on one farm up here, where a guy's got some cattle, just a couple of weeks ago, he got 6 in a week. And but that just in the area, that takes care of a lot of coyotes through the area, as you well know.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, the bear population this year too. I think I told you I didn't see any cubs this year, and I'm almost certain that freeze last year had a whole lot to do with that.
Yes, sir.
And reason being is this, of course, an old sow cub, sow bear, she's laying on the ground trying to hibernate, and she still has her cubs. Well, she's going to get up once in a while and try to eat. She's going to try to eat a little. Well, she gets up and leaves those little cubs, and it's that cold, they're not going to make it. And so I got a sneaking suspicion that that's what happened to a lot of them.
Absolutely, and I'm sure finding food for her was extremely difficult as well during that time frame as well too. So that would go a long way to explaining the fact that there weren't any cubs. Look, we're talking about predators here. I know you've got a strong feeling about predators, but I want you to tell people what you think about predators and even including some of those smaller critters that some people might really not look at as predators. Tell me a little bit about what your experiences have been. And here's the deal. You mentioned you're not a biologist. I will tell you this. You're more of a biologist than most of the biologists that I know these days, because you're actually doing things and on the ground and not sitting in front of a computer trying to model things. So based on what you've seen from your experience in the past and in the present, what's the deal with predators?
Well, first thing is this. I appreciate that compliment. You know what it does to me. But anyway, predators. Here again, let me go back to my coyote hunter. He just told me the other day that there was a farmer that called him and said that his coyote his fawn population was going down.
Yes, sir.
Well, he asked me, he said, "Are you trapping or are you letting anybody hunt?" Well, no. Well, guess what? And the one thing that I've got to tell people, I've got to really put an emphasis on this, and you did too on one of our previous podcasts, was raccoons.
Yes, sir.
You have got to trap those things, because if they're going through a field and there's a little bitty fawn in there, that's just like a cat after a mouse. He's going to kill it.
Yes, sir.
There are a whole lot more of those than there are coyotes.
Yes.
So you've got to get those dog-proof coon traps and get somebody either trapping them or trapping them yourself, and you will immediately see your populations of your fawns go up and your turkey poults. And even with that, possums and skunks also. You've got to get rid of them. Now, we don't want to get rid of all of them. There's a balance.
No, in heavens, no. No.
But the deal is this, just like we said before, it used to be everybody and his brother had coon hounds, and they would go out and coon hunt and take care of the population. But now things have changed. Things have really changed, even since, of course, since you and I were both kids. Things have changed a lot.
Yes, sir.
So, they've got to got to take care of that. And if you've got a neighbor or some guy fairly close, you don't have time to do it yourself, they're usually game for coming in and helping you, you know, just to get to do it. And they themselves too, they learn a little more about trapping and hunting coyotes too, you know. So it's everybody gets a benefit from it.
It really does, and primarily the wildlife itself. And that, when you get right down to it, it actually even it is good for the predators to be controlled, because I've seen situations, and I get tickled sometimes. That, well, you know, if you didn't hunt and you let the predators, well, you either have a bunch of predators and have no other wildlife, or you have a fair amount of wildlife and and few predators. Man, kind of, as far as I'm concerned, has been put on Earth to conserve, and conservation or conserve simply means the wise use of. And like you were saying, no, we don't want to get rid of every coon, every possum, every skunk, every coyote, every bobcat, or anything like that. But they too have to be controlled, and so that you kind of reach a happy medium between the predators and prey, and more importantly, at the same time, with the habitat that's out there as well too. But the coon thing interests me so much, because when we first started talking about this years ago as a biologist, I live in Abilene, Texas, and a rancher just south of town kept telling me, "So Larry, we don't have any fawns. I can't get my goats. We're not having any kids, from kid goats." He said, "Something is getting them." Well, I went up and spent a lot of time walking, looking for signs, looking for tracks. There were really not a whole lot of coyotes in that area, and very, very few bobcats, but I found some of the biggest coon tracks I've ever seen. So I went out with a predator call, and thankfully this had called in several coons, and with one of the old mouth-blown Burnham Brothers calls. And I shot 2 coons that were well over 20 pounds, which for that part of the world were big coons. And guess what? When we got rid of those coons and a few others, all of a sudden he started having a kid crop with his goats, and our fawn crops went from about 5% to about 60-70%. So folks that are listening, don't overlook the raccoon as a predator, and particularly in some of the northern and a little bit farther north climbs, I should say, because those coons up there, I've seen 30-40 pound coons up in your part of the world and farther north, and that's a big coon that can handle any fawn out there. And with the noses that they have, and they're always hungry, they're going to take every fawn that they have an opportunity to.
Exactly right. And I don't know whether I told you about when I first started trapping coons in my Duke dog proofs. I caught this one, and I was going to let him out of the trap. I just felt sorry for him. I don't know why.
Right.
Well, that was a mistake. I had a shovel with me, and I put the shovel between me and him. And I had a brand new pair of those LL Bean, it's got the leather uppers and the rubber bottoms,
The main guide boots. I love them.
Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah. Sure. And I put that shovel down to hold him away from me, and I was going to reach down and grab that trap and just open it so he could get away. Well, guess what? That little fella, he can't. No. He just in a flash, he jumped around that shovel and grabbed me by the toe of my boot.
Oh,
and
no.
I jumped back and I fell backwards. Well, when I did, he pulled the whole toe of that boot plumb out. They were brand new. He pulled it plumb out of the end of the shoe. Well, I learned real quick, no, you don't try to let them go, But the reason I tell that story is this. After I did that, I said, they don't have that much teeth. Well, I'll tell you what you do. If you catch one or you kill one or whatever, you open his mouth and push that gum back up toward the roof of his mouth. You're going to see exactly how much tooth he's got, and it's about 1.5 inches. And they're sharp as razors, buddy. And he's got jaw pressure like you would never believe. Let me just tell you this: if that trap had pulled out of the ground, he'd have eaten my britches plumb off of me.
Yeah, and I totally believe you, because I grew up hunting hounds with my dad, and I mean, we would trap coons and to train our dogs and all those kind of things, and you know, and again, we did not kill every coon that we treed. You know, we let some of them go. My dad was always very conservative. You know, his deal was he loved to listen to the hounds, and he was going to make darn sure that, you know, there were raccoons out there for those hounds to chase. But you know, in doing so, with controlling the populations as we did, to start with, we had bad screwworm problem, which is kind of approaching us in Texas again now, and lower US, which is really scary when you get right down to it. But you know, at the same time, we, by controlling the coons, and our coons weighed anywhere from about 10 to 15 pounds. But when in those areas where we hunted raccoons with dogs and did some trapping, we always had a really good fawns crop once we got rid of the screwworm fly. And in those areas where they didn't, it didn't happen that way. So, you know, as you've mentioned, and we're mentioning here, is it's predator control. It's not predator decimation, but control. And that's something we all need to take a serious look at, and hopefully more and more people will, you know, thanks to some of the stuff that you're doing and that you're able to put out through your Facebook pages. Kicking back to the food plots. When do you in the fall try to plant your food plots up there in that part of the world, up there in Virginia and West Virginia, and you know, maybe in the Carolinas and then a little bit farther north? When do you generally try to plant your food plots for the fall?
Usually here for the fall, I try to plant them. When I get to plant them is between somewhere around August the 20th up until around September 15th.
Yes, sir.
And one of the first ones I put in back here, I put it in on September the 12th, and it was really dry. Well, it started raining 2 days later, and it didn't quit for a while. and the deer were out in there up to their knees in mud, and this is no kidding.
Oh my goodness, yes.
But at the same time, you know, I still had a good food plot that year. But yeah, if you can get it in before September 15th, you're usually going to have a pretty good crop. Here again, depends on rain but I will say this, I can't emphasize enough also for people to fertilize it pretty heavy then, because you want it to give it a boost, you know, to come on up out of there and get fairly mature before the first frost.
Yes, sir. Right.
You know, whether it's a brassica, being turnips or whatever, you want it to get on up so the frost really won't hurt it that bad. But yeah, about September 15th. Now you can go a little bit later than that, but I wouldn't go much over another week later. If you don't get it in, then you just have to wait till spring, you know. But the one thing we do have up here this year, I will tell you this: we've got an acorn crop up here that you can't even walk on.
Really?
Yes, sir. It has really. Let me back off again too. We're talking about the food plots. I told you I didn't have much of one this year, and when the deer came off of that freeze last year, as you well know, you know, you can tell when they're coming out of winter in poor shape, of course.
Yes, sir.
And that's another reason why I put those scent stations out early, because I wanted to see the shape of the deer when they're coming out of the winter. Right. And you know, it takes them quite a while to catch up after something like that. They spend half of the summer trying to gain their weight back that they've lost. And yes, sir. And I was really afraid of what was going to happen this coming winter. Well, then we've got this acorn crop, and I put that video on the other day. I think you saw that old doe coming into the acorns on my camera, and buddy, she was fat as a butterball, and then here came her family.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, that sort of has eased my mind as far as the you know, what's going to happen. So I guess what I'm saying this year, if you didn't get you a food plot in like me to do really well then the good Lord took care of the problem with the acorns, you know. So in this area anyway.
That makes a very important point. You know, years ago, I was for years, friends and I owned Los Cazadores hunting headquarters in here in Texas, which had the world's largest white-tailed deer contest, Los Cazadores. But one of the things we did is we worked with ADM, with Mormon Mineral, in developing a ration for people to feed down in this part of the world. And the thing that with all the research that we did with Texas A&M at Kingsville and through ADM and all kinds of nutritionists and all those kind of things is one of the things we learned how important energy was to the health of a deer. So very often people say, oh, they need protein. Well, yes, they do need protein, but one of the things that this research showed is how important energy is as well. Now, the beauty of where you have oak trees is you're going to have acorns in a reasonable year. Some years a poor year, but generally there are always some acorns, and then like this year there's a lot of acorns, and I think that indeed was Mother Nature's way of counteracting some of the problems that were there because of the winter time. But those fats and carbohydrates in those acorns are so very, very important as far as the health of that deer is concerned. So I know when you get a lot of acorns, they get a little tougher to hunt because there are food sources everywhere. But at the same time, that wildlife greatly benefits from those huge acorn crops.
Yes, sir. Well, there, just like you're talking about, presents a little bit more of a hard hunt for you, but that's what hunting's all about, I would rather have to go out there and really hunt for one rather than just go out and, well, there's a deer, boom,
Yeah. No.
But yeah, I agree with you. The good Lord has a way of counteracting problems that have been presented, and that's exactly what happened this year, Utah. And just like I said, I was sort of sweating, not for myself, but for the animals themselves. I stop and think about myself. They went through a whole month, a little over a month of eating nothing but let's say let me just put it to you like this: if we were to try to live off of saltines and water for a month, it just wouldn't work. We'd lose a lot of weight. And that's exactly what they do. And that, they're trying to, what little browse there is, and there's not much. All it is a filler, just to make them not feel hungry. There's nothing to it as far as nutrition goes. And so they came out of it poor, but boy, like you say, this high energy acorns, of course, as we well know, that's one of their favorite foods, people, I've seen people, I heard of people putting corn out for them last year during the winter, and that's not really a good thing to do.
No.
And you can explain to them why not.
Well, here's the other thing. Within the diet, there is some fats and carbohydrates and all those kind of things, but within a deer's diet, it's just like within the steer. If you're feeding that steer and you're feeding them nothing but basically corn, there becomes a point in there where, because of the amount of corn and the various chemicals in it, it prevents the absorption of other items such as protein and other fats and carbohydrates. So to me, corn can be a blessing at times, but to go up there and pour out corn and say, okay, I'm putting out really good deer food. No. There's so many other things. If you're going to do those kind of things, that can be put out there where the deer will truly benefit from it. And corn is like ice cream to us and to the deer. And, they'll come to it if they know what it is. Interesting thing is years ago, even here in Texas, where baiting has been legal literally ever, when we first started putting out corn in parts of South Texas and other parts of the state where there were no corn crops, they didn't know what it was. It took those deer almost a year before they finally started eating it. Now, I don't think there's hardly a deer in the state of Texas that doesn't recognize the smell of a kernel of corn and know what it is. Whether it's apple flavored corn or what people now call deer corn, which tickles me because it's higher than regular corn and it's really the same thing other than the pretty bag kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You're right. You're so much better off, and particularly such as you do with food plots and making certain there's natural browse available throughout the year, and then even with I know with you fertilizing your food plots, some of that fertilizer obviously is being leached off of there and going to those oak trees that are not very far away, and that has that has a tendency to help as well too. And then deer too have that innate ability. They've got a pointed muzzle they're browsers as opposed to grazers like a cow, which has got kind of a square muzzle. Those deer have a pointed nose so they can reach in to, to pick out the most nutritious part. And it's an innate thing for them to be able to determine through smell or whatever, that this plant over here is more nutritious than this one, and this part of the plant's more nutritious. So the fertilization, that you do on your food plot benefits, of course, not just white-tailed deer, but it benefits the habitat, which in turn benefits the songbirds and everything, the butterflies and everything else that's out there, which is a big part of why we do these things. Is maybe we're targeting deer and turkey, but guess what? We're really helping wildlife all the way across the board with what we do.
Exactly right. That's really funny that you were talking about that. I'll tell you a little story about several years ago. There was a guy that had rented my brother's land over here, and he had corn in.
Yes.
Well, he came over here to me. He said, man, the deer are eating my corn up. And this was before, it was still green. I said,
right.
I said, I want to come over and see what you got. So I went over there, and Larry, this is what was happening. First thing, there was bears in the corn knocking it down. And then there was also raccoons. You can tell the difference. And of course, crows, they're eating. But I told him, I said, look, a deer will not knock a stalk of corn down. He will not do that. And years ago, my dad, when we used to have 70 acres of corn in that same field, and he said a deer will not walk down through a field of corn and pick a cob off of it. They won't do it. They'll wait until it's knocked down, then they may chew a little bit of it and they'll go on. So I went over and looked at it, and he had gotten permits to shoot the deer. I said, you're doing the wrong thing. I said, you got predators over here more than you've got deer. The deer are just cleaning up what's on the ground.
Right.
Anytime somebody thinks deer are eating a corn, it's not because of the deer themselves. Just like a deer would rather graze, forage around on the ground than he would grab anything off the tree with. And let's get back to my scent station. I know you saw that where I tried putting a scent on up in the tree.
Yes, I did.
You saw that doe, buddy. She was, she was anything different like that. Deer love that kind of stuff, and she was licking that stuff. She had her fawns right behind her. but she just stayed there forever, and getting back to the bobcats, we've not gotten any of those here, but I had one, of course, on that one video last week. He watered my camera for me.
Yes, I thought that was so cool. I thought, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
Well, I think he thought it was going to take root right there, so it needed a little bit of water. But
well, I got a feeling he was marking territory is what he was.
Sure was. But there again, that kind of stuff takes place year round, not just during the breeding season. They have a territory and they mark it all the time.
Absolutely. The things that you're getting on camera and talking about video camera and still cameras. Of course, your lovely wife is a photographer out of this world, good on so many different things, photographs she takes. But so you're documenting all these things, but in the process, you're learning. And to me, that is a big part. My goal every day is to learn something new, or if it's not something new, to relearn something that I'd forgotten about, in years past. But with what you're doing. Oh my God, Sam, it's absolutely fantastic. And then of course being able to put it out, where other people can see it. And since we mentioned that, people see your videos and the things that you're doing. What's the best way for them to do so?
Well, they can get on my site. That's Craig's Creek Deer and Wildlife Management. And they can send me a friend request. Like I said before, I have to sort of vet that because I have people wanting in on it that, like you said, they want to be us, And then I've got another one that's Samuel Olds, OLDS. That's the easiest one to get through, which is actually Facebook. And and then I've got another one. I'm not even going to say that one, but that's Samuel OLS, I think is how that thing's spelled. But that was a Facebook problem when I first got my Android phone, and I sent the application in, off of it. Well, they said that was a bogus name. My last name was a bogus name. I said, well, I've known that all my life, but you but they would not accept that OLD. So I had to put OLS, and they accepted that one. Of course, we know where that goes to. But anyway, but it was kind of a crazy thing. But that's how that all took place. And I've got 3 sites now. But the best one, I like to say, if they want to send me a friend request, is the Craig's Creek Deer and Wildlife Management, they send me a friend request, and I'll accept them. Of course, like I say, I'll vet them. I'll look at their background.
Right.
And,
exactly.
But
Fantastic.
Larry, I've got to tell you one thing, and all of your friends down there, I certainly do appreciate what you all have done for me and showing what I'm doing up here. And this what I'm doing here, it helps all over the country, all over,
Oh, it does, yes.
And that's basically what I'm in it for. If I was a hunter like I was when I was a kid, you will know, if we saw a buck with a spike on his head, we'd burn the end of the barrel off trying to get him. But now, if I were like that, I could supply Craig County with deer meat, but I'm not like that. I killed a 10-pointer last year that I knew was an old buck, and I think a lot of people are seeing this and they're realizing what they can do themselves to actually manage it themselves. I tell you what, that's the one thing about it. People, they hear you and I, of course, we're managers. You're a biologist and all that, but I got to tell people this: when you pull that trigger, you're a manager also, no matter who you are.
That when you come right down to it, that's the ultimate manager that makes it. You make the decision as to what you're going to pull the trigger on, and that really plays into the game a tremendous amount, and more so than many people tend to realize, I think.
Right.
You're exactly right.
You after a while you learn. You learn what you're what you're looking at. There was so much that I used to look at and watch deer do and wondered what they were doing. Then and that's the one good thing about video and trail cameras. You watch what they're doing and you wonder why they're doing this thing or that thing. And then finally, after a while, it sort of dawns on you, and you'll see exactly why they're making the move they're making. And it's really interesting, as you well know.
It is.
You said yourself before that if you want to learn about deer, you watch people, and they're so much like we are.
They really truly are. I want to switch horses on you here very quickly because we're all of a sudden people cropped up, and people play an important role in everything that we do these days. Now, you here not too very long ago started sending me photographs of a farmhouse that you and Miss Donna have been redoing. And tell me a little bit about that. I think people need to know about that as well too.
Okay, what we're doing with this is my old home place. Is where I grew up in that old house. I'm sitting here looking at it right now. It's just below my house, about maybe 100 yards. And of course, my stepmom has the rights to it until something happens to her, and I hope nothing ever does. But anyway, so I told her, I said, look, let's turn that thing into a Airbnb. I told her what the benefits could be and to everybody. And she said, let's do that. So we started renovating. I've got a company that's working on it, and God bless their souls, buddy. When they hit the ground, they're running.
Yes, sir.
And we're working on it. I've got before and after pictures, and soon it will be ready. We're going to have it open November 1st. And what I'm hoping to do is having not only hunters come in down here, but I'm having of course people just wanting a vacation spot, and it's going to be called Craig's Creek Shady Rest, and it'll be on Airbnb listing.
Yes, sir.
And but this year, you know, I had told you and Luke that I was maybe going to have hunters in here to go hunting on me, but I can't do that quite yet because I've not got things ready for that. And not only that, I'm still working on insurance for that to, you know, see what the deal is there.
Yes, sir, right.
Because I've got to be real careful. But, however, there's national forest or public lands within a mile of me. They can come stay here and drive up the road a mile, and they're on national forest. You know, 16,000 acres of it back in there. So, and it's back in behind me. Good government road goes into it, and but Craig County is we're 65% national forest anyway. So
yes, sir.
There's a lot of hunting here, and I know you saw the pictures of the turkeys that I took off the deck of that thing the other day.
Yes, sir. Pretty cool.
There's a lot to see, and a lot. You can just sit down there on that deck and you can watch eagles go by. You can watch turkeys. You can watch all kinds of birds. Had some cedar waxwings down there the other day, diving down the creek. Now, I tried to get pictures of those, but those little devils are fast.
They are. They are.
but a beautiful little bird, and just like you're saying, you know, this is all about things from bumblebees to crickets and on up, you know. And but yeah, that we're going to make it available. I'm hoping that there's some of my Texas buddies are going to make it up here one of these days and maybe stay in it. But it's you know, it's a good place, and
I think that's in the plans actually. From down here looking, I visited, so.
I certainly hope so. And because like I said, and that's the other thing we're going to do too. You know, we talk about campfires. We're going to have
oh yes.
We're going to have a fire ring down there, and not only that, I talked to the builder the other day, and we're going to put an outside grill, a stationary grill, rock and brick, along with a brick oven combination, and you know, where people can go out there and sit and cook and eat and bat flies and you know.
and enjoy life, by golly.
Yes, sir. And just watch a creek, and it's a nice place. You know, like I said, I grew up there. I told you before, my orbit was very small in life, and that's where I grew up, and I'm 100 yards from it now. I'm basically on the same land. So, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
That is a fantastic thing as far as I'm concerned.
I like to say, you know, one of the benefits was I've watched this wildlife, watched deer all my life, and of course my dad got me into it, and then I started listening to this guy called Larry Weissoon, and it even went further, and it's, you know, it's been a good life.
You know what? It really has. I agree. It's kind of the same way here. I was visiting with somebody the other day, and they said, you know, now where have you been? And I started talking about it, and now I live only about 26 miles from where I grew up, and I had actually thought about building on the property, but because of, even though it's out in the middle of nowhere in the country kind of thing, there's several stipulations of what you have to do these days, and it's just going to cost me a little bit more than what I really wanted to spend, so we ended up in town. But in less than half an hour, I can be on my little place, and I can hunt, I can fish a little bit, I can shoot, and I can go sit underneath a 500-year-old live oak tree on one of the limbs that hits the ground and just kind of sit there and not do anything too. And I think sometimes that's the most important part of that property.
Well, I think, you know, based on both of our age, it's time for us to do that kind of thing. And hopefully maybe one day, I keep saying this, maybe one day I can get down there and visit you and look at that with you also. But
well, we need you down here.
But I told you earlier that I was going to, at the end of this thing, I don't know how close we are to it, but I was going to tell you this little story.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and we probably need to be getting to the end of it, but please tell the story.
Well, up here in town, there's a little store called the Economy Feed Store. Everybody around here will know that. Of course, had feed and seed and everything that you'd ever want. This was back in the early '60s and the late '70s. I think he finally closed it. But they had an old potbelly stove in there that all the locals, the farmers and whatever, would go in the winter time and stand around, and of course they spit chewing tobacco juice down in it. But, and a lot of them had the buffalo plaid on, and their coveralls and all that.
Oh yes.
But anyway, they're all in, a bunch of them were in there sitting around it, telling hunting stories, and then all of a sudden the door flew open. Here came this little young fella in there. I'll never get this as long as I live. Now, I know who he was, but I'm not going to call his name.
Okay.
But he came in there with one of these try to impress everybody stories, hunting tales. And I had an uncle that lived down below me here. His name was Walter Whitlow. Very nice gentleman. Just a really good guy.
Yes, sir.
And he never went into town that he wasn't dressed to the hilt. Shirt and tie, although he might have had his bib overalls on, but shirt and tie, and had a little hat, sort of like a auctioneer's hat. But anyway, he was sitting there, and this little guy walked in and told this big tale, big turkey tale, and old Walter looked at him up over the top of his wire-rimmed glasses. He said, buddy, he said, I like a liar, but he said, I'll be daggone if I don't like you too well. So anyway, that was, that's sort of a funny story. I could have gone on, sort of drawn on now, but I'll never forget that. Of course, the place just busted loose. It was just all those guys in there. And the little guy went out the door just, red faced, but it was funny.
Oh, absolutely. We need more times like that these days. You walk into a place, even to a hunting camp. I walk into a hunting camp. Everybody's got their phone and they're sitting separately, and it's not like it used to be. And unfortunately, we have lost some of that. And every opportunity I get to try to bring it back, to me, that's one of the reasons we call this a campfire thing, because I've noticed, over the years, campfire makes people relax. It kind of loosens their tongue a little bit, whether they're having, some of Who Shot John or a cup of coffee or a glass of milk kind of thing. But we need more of those times. We need more old pot-bellied stoves with older guys sitting around them telling tales. And that would bring this world back to a much better even keel as far as I'm concerned.
I will have to say this. I think you and I have lived in the better days of this world anyway,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sure a lot of people have felt that way, over the years, but my gosh, as you mentioned earlier when we were talking, it's been an absolutely fantastic life that the good Lord allows us to continue, hopefully a little bit longer. And he needs to, hopefully will let us continue long enough to where we can actually sit across face to face from one of these campfires we keep talking about. So that's kind of in the plans, like I said, with Luke and Jeff and I have been talking about making a road trip and heading up in your direction this coming year. So we're going to try to make that happen.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hold the deer hunting for you guys. So anyway.
Oh my God.
So I'm gonna open up the farm to y'all.
Oh well, I think you just. I can't wait to call Luke, and you probably have already talked to him, but I think that may have just sealed the deal, Bob.
Oh yeah. When you guys get up here, you got to run the farm. I promise you that.
Well, to me, if we don't do anything but just sit around the fire and tell stories, I'll be more than happy and more than thrilled.
Well, I'll tell you one other thing that's going to happen real quick. I've got a neighbor down here that just bought himself a drone, and he's flies that thing pretty well, and we're going to take some video of down the creek around the farm here on it, and I'll have that on there in a couple of days also. So when you guys look at that, you're going to say, yes, we're going.
Well, I think you convinced me already, but I can't wait to see that. But Sam, I hate to cut this off. Unfortunately, I had a little bit of a health issue that I've got to go take some pills for that I'm on the mend for, and And here in a couple of days after we do this, I think I'm going to be back in the deer woods, which I have been longing for all year long. But I want to tell you how truly much I appreciate your friendship, that more than anything, but also truly appreciate you coming on the podcast. And I'm not about to let it go this long again for you and I visit once again around this virtual campfire, I guess is what we should call it.
Absolutely, and maybe after the season's then come and gone by, we can get back on here and talk about what we've done.
We may not wait that long. I think we may have to do a little bit of visiting here after the next time Luke and I get together, and he and I are going to try to hunt up at the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up there for whitetail. And by the time we finish that, you ought to be into your hunting seasons as well too, pretty strong. So let's plan on doing that here in say in a month or so.
Sounds good. And like I say, anytime y'all want to jump a plane, just come on. If you show up down here in my yard, I'm not going to chase you away. I promise you that.
Well, we look forward to getting you down here. And with that, folks, Sam, thank you so very much for being on with me today. And, we look for everybody that's around our virtual campfire to be back with us here next week. And, I'm sure we'll find somebody to talk a little bit about hunting and wildlife conservation. But in the meantime, watch what Sam Old is doing on Facebook and through his pages, and learn more about his new Airbnb, because I'll tell you what, knowing Mr. Sam, I know it's got to be a fabulous place, and I know he's going to be putting some video out here for too very long. But if you're thinking about going to that part of the world of the USA, you really need to get in touch with them and plan on to stay there.
And Larry, it will be listed on the Craig County Airbnb is what it will be listed, Craig County, Virginia. And I wanted to tell you I appreciate you, and God bless you, and God bless all the listeners.
Amen.
I thank you for all you're doing.
And we'll see you and everybody else here around the campfire next week, folks. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Take care.
DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn has also been brought to you by The Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, the Texas Wildlife Association, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, FishingBooker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, FishingBooker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. FishingBooker. Fishing trips made easy.
Join us at a Friends of NRA event where freedom, fun, and firearms come together like nowhere else. With more than 600 events held across the country, there's always one happening near you. From exciting games to exclusive auctions featuring one-of-a-kind firearms and gear you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're a lifelong hunter, a competitive shooter, or simply passionate about defending freedom, there is a seat for you. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you and get ready for a night you won't forget.